The Isuzu MU-X has become one of the most popular large SUVs in Australia. So should you buy this ute-based SUV? Let's talk about that. G'day, I'm Matt. This channel is called The Right Car, and the MU-X, Isuzu's D-Max based off-road wagon, could be the right car for you if you are after something that's rugged, capable, and also reasonably practical. I'll show you. Stick around. There are three different versions of the Isuzu MU-X available. All of them come with the same engine and transmission combination. Tell you more about that soon. There's the choice of rear-wheel drive or four-wheel drive on all three grades, and there's also 7 seats as standard in every single version. That might be great for you, or it might be annoying. It just depends on what you're expecting. Now, the entry-level version is called the LSM. It's pretty affordable, but it looks a little bit affordable too. It's got some nice elements on the outside, LED lighting, 17-inch alloy wheels with all-terrain tyres, but on the inside, it's got cloth trim, which looks okay, but it's also got a plastic steering wheel, a plastic gear knob, and a smaller 7-inch touchscreen media system. At least it's got Apple CarPlay and Android Auto, and the Apple CarPlay is wireless as well. Then you step up to this one here, which is the LSU. It looks a little bit different because it's got 18-inch alloy wheels with highway terrain tyres, still with LED lighting, still with cloth trim on the inside, but it gets a bigger touchscreen media system and a few other nice features as well. And if you want the flashiest one, then you have to buy the top spec version. It's the LST. It looks a lot more, well, I guess nice. It's also got bigger 20-inch wheels, which isn't going to be for everyone out there. Obviously, if you are going to go off-roading, those 20s aren't going to be great for you. But it's got a much nicer interior as well, leather accented seat trim, and there's leatherette bits on the doors as well, ambient lighting, heated front seats, electric driver's seat adjustment, electric passenger seat adjustment as well. And it does feel like you are getting the money that you're spending if you choose that top spec version. But maybe it doesn't feel as special as some of the other rivals at that kind of price point. Let me tell you about some of those alternatives. When it comes to rivals, there are a few really good alternatives that you should be checking out. If you haven't already, the Ford Everest is one of them. It's a great family wagon with lots of capability and practicality on offer as well. There's a heap of different model grades available too, though it is a fair bit more expensive on average and gets quite pricey at the higher end, especially if you want the V6 diesel engine in that model. But that is a nice differentiator compared to the Isuzu, which doesn't come with a V6 available. So that could be the best option for you if you need that amount of power and torque. And also there are a couple of more affordable options that you might want to check out. The first one being the Mitsubishi Pajero Sport. It is getting old now. You can check out my review of it and I'll show you how it's showing its age. But it is also a pretty practical and affordable model. It starts at a very low price point compared to some of its rivals. And another low price point but high value offering, I reckon, is the SsangYong Rexton. Hit the link up there and you can check out my review of that SUV. It's definitely got some wow factor on the inside that the Triton-based Pajero Sport doesn't have. So it could be a really good option for you if you want a little bit of bling and you want something that feels pretty special on the inside. It also comes with big wheels available too, if that's what you're after. And also it looks great, I reckon. Tell me what you think in the comments. It might be based on the D-Max, but it's nowhere near as big as a D-Max, and that's because it only measures just over 4.8 meters long. So it's also got a shorter wheelbase than a D-Max, so it isn't necessarily going to be the most spacious, or is it? Let me show you in a sec. But first, let's check out the boot, see how much space we've got to play with. If you choose this spec of the MU-X, you get an electric tailgate, which is a nice feature to have, and it allows you easier access to this space, which is 311 litres of cargo capacity, but probably only if you take out this little panel here. So you've got a little bit more space there. Look, that's probably only going to be big enough for maybe a couple of small suitcases or some shopping bags, or maybe even the kids' backpacks from school, but it's not a huge space, so don't expect a massive amount of cargo volume when you do have these rear seats up. Now let's put them down and just have a look at what we're dealing with here. They're pretty easy to put down, those little levers on the edges there. They're not as good as some of those other ones which have a pull tab, but at least pretty easy to pop them down. They just fly away a little bit, those straps, so just keep that in mind when you are putting them down or up. So as you can see, there's a fair amount of space in there. You see the figure on your screen now. It does make it a very practical 5-seat SUV, and if that's what you need, it could be a really good option. However, like I said, all of them come with 7 seats as standard, so you don't necessarily have one that comes as standard with a really big boot, because if you didn't have those seats there, you would have a really big boot. Also, if you're wondering, there is a spare wheel underneath the body of the car. The interior of the MU-X is more practical than posh, I would say, and that might be just fine for you. But it is a big step up over the last generation MU-X. The interior of that was really quite dowdy, but in here it does feel, well, nice enough, I would say, for the money that you're paying. It's not necessarily special feeling, and if you want special, there are better options out there. But if you're after something that's practical, well, it does have that box ticked. So let's talk about some of the practicality elements first. A couple of cup holders here. You've got a covered center console bin there. You've got bottle holders in the doors. You've got a dual glove box, which I really like. And another thing I really like is that you get pop-out cup holders on the edges. So that just makes things a little bit nicer, especially if you've got the heater on and you've got a hot coffee. That's nice, or aircon and a cold can of drink or something like that. So that's nice to see. There's a little storage section in front of the shifter here. It doesn't have wireless charging though, that is a bit of a shame. It's also got a USB port down here as well. Down here you'll find your 4-wheel drive selector and also your rear diff lock if you buy a 4x4 version, and your off-road modes button as well. I've got my phone connected to the screen via wireless Apple CarPlay. It's not the biggest screen. It's a 9-inch screen in this spec. You get the 7-inch smaller screen in the lower spec version. And it's pretty easy to use. It just takes a while to kick into action. So when you jump into the car in the morning, you might notice that it takes, I don't know, 2 minutes before it figures out that it's got a wireless connection. That can be a little bit annoying, especially if you're maybe on the phone as you're jumping into the car. So just keep that in mind. Now, there's also a little digital screen in front of the driver here, which is pretty easy to get your head around, and there's a bunch of different configurations that you can have for it as well, including you can have about 4 different digital speedometers on there if that's what you really want. But it is a little bit simpler than some of the other systems out there, and also it just looks a little bit plain, if you ask me. They've got these dials with this kind of pattern on the background. Just doesn't look as special as maybe you might want it to. Same with the seats. Look, they're a fabric trim. It's a pretty nice, comfortable seat, but it just isn't as wow factor as you might hope for if you are buying a brand new car in 2023 or 2024 if you're watching it then. Yeah, it's not super duper amazing, but it does have, in this spec, the leather lined steering wheel, and you also get the leather little cap on the shifter here as well. And also, I really like that Isuzu has a simple button on the steering wheel to turn off the lane keeping assistance if you want to. I'll tell you a little bit more about that in the driving section. Now, let's check out the second row. Second row space isn't too bad in the MU-X. In fact, it's actually pretty good. Just keep in mind though that it doesn't have adjustability to the second row. So you can't slide it forward to adjust the amount of space that you give the people in the third row. Or if you've got a boot full of stuff, you can't move this seat forward necessarily to make your boot bigger. So that could be an issue for you, but it's not unusual in this segment. Now, look, I'm 182 centimeters or 6 foot tall. This seat is set for me. I've got lots of knee room, fair amount of headroom and foot room. It's not too bad, in fact, and you can fit 3 adults across. I have in this car before, so it's not bad in that regard. And what I really like about it is the amenities are pretty well sorted back here for occupants. So if you've got kids, for instance, I had my daughter's child seat fit here on this side of the car before, and there are vents up here as well. So she was getting a nice breeze on her face when the weather was a bit warmer the other day, so that was a nice thing to have. And there's a fan controller up here, so you can adjust the amount of blow from the ceiling mounted vents. They're in the third row as well. I'll show you that in a sec. Now, when it comes to other stuff in here that you will like, well, there are a pair of USB ports down here. You've also got this handy little hook on the back of this seat, which you could hang a shopping bag or maybe a school bag or something like that on. You've got mat pockets here as well. There's bottle holders in the doors and a flip down armrest here with a pair of pop-out cup holders, which is nice to see. So yeah, in terms of practicality, it's pretty good. Let's check out the back row. Yeah, I'm going to get in there now. Right. Got to tuck that in. There we go. So that's not too difficult, as you can see. Now I'll just fold this one forward so you can see what's going on. Right. There's a fair amount of space back here, obviously, with these seats down there is. I'll just put them back so you can see a little bit more contextually what we've got to deal with here. That should be able to help. That is enough space for me to sit in the third row. And yeah, I'm not a small adult. I'm a little bit above average in terms of size. So it is a practical 3-row SUV. If that's what you're after, then this could be the right car for you. So in the back row, you've also got some nice features, like I mentioned, those vents. You've also got cup holders on the armrests here. Yeah, there's armrests on top of the wheel arches, except they're a bit of a hard, scratchy plastic. So that's the only downer. You can actually see pretty well out the back as well. So through this window here and also over those in front of you. Just keep in mind though, if you do plan to have kids in the back row, there are no top tethers or ISOFIX points back here. You've just got 3 top tethers in the second row and ISOFIX points in the window seats. As I mentioned, all versions come with the same engine. It's a 3-litre turbo diesel 4-cylinder engine. Now, Isuzu has been known for this type of engine for a long time now, and with good reason. It's a pretty punchy thing. It comes with the choice of 2-wheel drive, so rear-wheel drive, or selectable 4-wheel drive. If you choose the 4-wheel drive versions, you also get a locking rear differential as standard across the entire range. There's a 6-speed automatic transmission. Lots of other vehicles in this segment have now moved to 8 or even 10-speed autos, so 6 seems a little bit behind the times, but I reckon it does a pretty good job, as I'll tell you in a sec. And it's also got up to 3.5 tonne braked towing capacity across the range. So yeah, it seems like a pretty good fit for this kind of SUV. I've been living with the Isuzu MU-X for about a month now, and it's really fit into my lifestyle quite well. I can totally see why people buy ute-based SUVs like this, because they do so much so well. And I mean, look, they are inherently compromised in a bunch of other ways as well. Like, you know, I could get something like a Toyota Kluger or a Mazda CX-9 or something like that and have a more family-friendly sort of nice drive experience, but hey, they don't have the potential for extreme capability that this thing does. Not that I've really gone and used it, but yeah, it's something nice to have up your sleeve at least. The obvious thing you need to start with is the diesel engine, which is a little bit loud. In fact, it's quite loud. It does take a bit of getting used to how noisy it can be, but I don't think that it's a deal breaker. And also I think that it's got a good amount of power and torque available to you as well. It really does pull when you need it to, although it's certainly not as quick as something like a V6 Everest or something like that. And I know you probably realize that because, you know, it's 4-cylinder versus V6, but hey, it's just something you might want to keep in mind. And look, it isn't as perky as some of the other SUVs in this class. Like even a Toyota Fortuner feels a bit quicker, but arguably you're not looking for quickness if you're buying a vehicle like this. The transmission does mostly a pretty good job. I would say that maybe it can be a little bit busy at times when it's at lower speeds and it sort of upshifts before it really should, and it ends up shifting back to help pull along a hill or something like that, but it's fine. At open road speeds, it does a really good job of maintaining pace, and it does have enough grunt to quickly overtake, just provided that you're not going uphill as well, because it can run out of puff just a little bit. Another thing I've been pretty impressed with is the ride comfort. Look, it is still a ute-based SUV, so you do get the occasional shudder through the cabin, but it certainly has a pretty nice firm feel on the road, and not too firm though. It's not hard riding, it just has a bit of a sharpness over sharp edges. Typical for a ute-based SUV, but when you aren't, you know, encountering much big bumpy sections of road, then it will feel pretty cozy and pretty comfortable. And the steering too is pretty good. I find that it does have a nice light action to it. It's not, you know, full of feel or anything. It's not a sporty SUV to drive by any stretch of the imagination, but it's not trying to be. It really just does the job. It's a pretty good family runaround SUV that is obviously pretty capable of doing all sorts of stuff off-road and when it comes to towing. So if that's what you plan to do, hey, I can totally see why you'd buy this. All right, let's talk about efficiency for the MU-X. Now on your screen, you'll see the official combined cycle fuel consumption figure for the MU-X range. That is pretty good for the class. It's not necessarily the best you can get, but it is fine. Now, if you're wondering what I've seen across several weeks of testing, I've had this car for nearly a month, you'll see it on your screen now. Now that's obviously a little bit higher. And I was doing a lot of stuff, just myself and my daughter running around town, or just, you know, me going for a cruise. So it's, yeah, what you can probably expect if that's what you're gonna do with your MU-X. The Isuzu MU-X range scored the maximum 5-star ANCAP safety rating in 2020, but then was retested in 2022 where it still scored 5 stars. So it's got lots of standard safety technology, including autonomous emergency braking with pedestrian and cyclist and junction detection. There's a traffic sign recognition system. You've got lane keeping assistance, blind spot monitoring and rear cross traffic alert across the entire range. All models come with a reversing camera and rear parking sensors. If you step up to the LSM and above, you also get front parking sensors. And when it comes to airbags, there are 8 on offer. So you've got dual front, you've got a driver's knee, you've got a front center, you've also got front side and full length curtain all the way to the 3rd row, which is nice to see. Isuzus in Australia come with a 6-year 150,000k warranty, which is a bit strange. Some of the other brands out there have 7 years unlimited Ks. If you buy a Pajero Sport, you can get up to 10 years of warranty. So if that matters to you, it might be a better option than this. But you also get 7 years of roadside assist included with this vehicle and a 7-year capped price servicing plan. The intervals are every 12 months and 15,000 Ks. And you can see on screen now the average price per year if you do service it every 12 months or every 15,000 Ks for that matter. It is a little bit expensive to maintain, but it's not the most expensive in this segment. Do you reckon Isuzu deserves your money with the MU-X? Well, I reckon it's a pretty solid option. One of the better examples of the ute-based 4x4 SUV wagon brigade, but also it's got lots of safety technology, a long warranty, and it does have a fair amount of interior practicality that some of its rivals just can't match. So, I reckon it's pretty good. Tell me what you reckon in the comments section below. And if you haven't already, please do hit like and subscribe and ring the bell to keep up to date, so you can join the community and have your say about every video that I've ever done and ever will do. There's a lot more coming. See you soon.